Welcome into the latest version of Evan. You're tripping me out. Let me start again. Welcome into the latest version of On the Beat Live. We're still searching for a new name. That's Evan Rogers, Adam Smith, Jeremiah Holloway. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. All right, we're going to do this show as tightly as possible. The new start time is 8 o'clock. We've got Evan. Adam, you missed it. Evan is like on fire. He's Red Bulled up and caffeinated up, or whatever these young folks drink these days. So, Evan, you got a minute and a half, 2 minutes opening statement before we dig into the title of the show, Building Depth.
I'm excited to be here. I am on fumes, as Tommy mentioned. I was laying it out today. I had my 3 back-to-back classes today, and then a club meeting and a club dinner. But I'm well prepared for tonight's topic. I'm very excited because I found some great stats. This is going to be a good conversation. I think this is a very interesting discussion talking about depth. And, the Tar Heels are 2-0, as some people would say. There's not a lot of teams in the country that can say that. Notre Dame can't say that right now. Florida can't say that right now, but the Tar Heels can. But this is going to be a good show. I'm excited.
Jeremiah, it's going to be a lot to keep the young man down tonight. What you got? Opening statement.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about football today, so I'll let us go ahead and get into that. I just want to say, man, I was playing basketball yesterday. I got poked in the eye really bad, so I'm like trying to, fight that off a little bit. But other than that, doing pretty good. We're gonna get a few nights of sleep and hope it, heals up. So just pray for healing on that. But so excited to be here with a new start time and figure this thing out. Hopefully we can save everybody an extra hour of sleep. So appreciate everybody that's here listening at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., even when it bleeds into 10 p.m. So hopefully we can get you guys out of here a little bit. Yeah, I play hurt, you know what I mean? I try not to load manage, I try to I try to get out there and do the thing. But yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now so we can go ahead and get with it.
Yeah, strap it up, get the shot, get the eye patch. Adam Smith. The Wi-Fi appears to be strong. We can see your face clearly. Opening statement.
Strong like bull, TA.
I'm just over. Like
yeah, right. I'm just over here. I mean, what is going on with Evan? I mean, I was thinking it just looks so goofy the way he's leaning in there. You never knew if Ross, when we used to do this with Ross, you thought he might be on coke half the time. I don't know what Evan's on over there, loopy little fella.
I'm on straight fumes and passion. Fumes and passion.
Well, passion is good. I'm sorry to hear about the fumes. But yeah, happy birthday to Connor Harrell. Happy birthday to Chip Lindsey. Didn't they? Did we hear? Was it? They had the same birthday on Monday. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Lindsey, the big 5-0.
Oh, 50 even. So maybe our loyal audience can do some research. Jeremiah and I were walking out today. We're like, is Connor Harrell 20? Is he 21? How old is he? We should have asked him rather than asking him football questions. But let's cue it up and get it rolling. I was going to make a debate joke, but I won't do it. So
I gave y'all opening statements. Yeah, I gave y'all opening statements in honor of that. Let's get into it. All right, Carolina playing the depth. We've heard it for 5 years now. Mack Brown talking about playing more players. This year, they're doing that, especially on defense. They also don't have much choice given the injuries they've had, especially on the offensive line. But we're going to talk Mack Brown first, or we're going to let Mack Brown talk and then Geoff Collins talk, and then we're going to debate this depth thing and see where we all come down on the subject. Here's Mack Brown.
They had the ball like 50 plays again, 52, 54, 56. Minnesota had the ball 55. So you've got defensive players now. The big guys up front are playing 25 plays. Where, like we said, Aaron Crawford played 98. And you can't play 98. You can't play hard for 98 plays, and he did the best you could do. So absolutely playing too deep. We've got to find more corners so we can rest them some, and we've got to get 2 more linebackers ready to play. Other than that, we are rolling people at a high level. Safeties, we played 6 safeties Saturday, which is unheard of. But Elijah and Marcus played too much. We need Stewart and Ty Adams to step up right now. They're the 2 next in line. And Ashton Woods has been hurt. We need him to get well, and he is well, so we need him to get in there. And we've got a couple of those other young linebackers like Lavalee, Michael. There's a few guys in there that are working to get that second and third spot, but we're not there yet, and that's why we've got to get there with those guys.
And it's funny on that comment, I asked Geoff Collins about the linebacker play, and Evan, I know, has some stats on linebacker substitutions, but we're going to listen to Collins first before we get into this.
Amari and Power are playing at a really, really high level. Did we announce Amari as the player of the game, player of the week? Yep. So well-deserved. Played lights out, had a ton of production. Power Echols, I think everybody associated with Carolina football knows the kind of player he is. So that's been the challenge, and we've gotten, I think the young backers got, 10 to 16 reps on Saturday, and I think Lavalee had maybe 8 in the previous game. So just throwing them in there, getting them exposure at it, just keep building their confidence, keep building their growth. Because when they're at practice, they're playing really, really well, and just throwing them into the fire a little more will, I think, help their maturation and growth. And you guys probably haven't been at practice in a while just to see how we do the walkthroughs, but we try to get a ton of reps in a 10-minute period just to overload them with the scheme so they can execute it and they can just do it without even thinking. That's the part that we want them to be at. Amari's there, Power is there, where they hear the call, they know exactly all the adjustments, checks, and they go play fast. I think that next group is right there on the cusp of being at that level.
All right, let's talk about it here. Cedric Gray and Power Echols played far too many snaps the last 2 years. Power and Amari Campbell are doing similar things this year, but to Collins's point is that they're the ones producing. Evan, listen to this. You want to go last? Okay, I'm letting the young man dictate the thing. You're up then, Jeremiah. How important is it for them to get this depth at linebacker, and your thoughts on if it's possible given what's behind Power and Amari?
Well, this is what I'll say to start that off. And a few of us were actually talking about this. I think it was actually me and Adam were talking about this, I want to say yesterday. Mari Campbell, in his first couple of games as a starter, has looked really good to me. I'm just looking at his athleticism. He's made some tackles. Even when you consider the fact that he has that glove on, he's been really making plays, at a level that I wasn't totally sure, but I think when we look at that linebacker spot.
We're losing Jeremiah. We're going to have to dip into the depth. Jeremiah, you blinked out on us.
Oh, yeah, shoot.
You blinked out on us. You were talking about Amari and his ability and his good play so far. You blinked out again. All right. Reboot. Get back in here. Adam, you're up. Let's talk about these linebackers. We're going to get through this. I don't know if the gods are telling us we can't do this at 8 o'clock, but we're going to try. Adam, you're up. Jeremiah, reboot and come back.
Should we make a Duke Power joke?
Where is he living?
Well, I'm picking up on the linebacker thing.
Well, just the depth. You've been covering this.
I don't need to dox him.
You've been covering this team forever, and Mack has never insisted that the depth be played. It is actually happening this year, but for the linebacker position, I think. What do you think?
I mean, one thing's certain. One thing is inevitable, that if you ask, we were talking about this obviously with Mack on Monday. If you ask Mack Brown about rotate,
what is happening, folks? Adam, now you're gone. It's going to be the Evan Rogers, Tommy Ashley show. Evan, you have no choice. Adam, I know you can still hear me. Your internet went to pieces and it looked like Minecraft. We need a new show. Maybe it's send money for fresh Wi-Fi. Evan, you got no choice. Join us up.
Yeah, maybe it's just a sign, just because of the numbers I pulled. So this topic is something that I think, like you mentioned, UNC has done a really good job at playing its depth across the board this season, besides this spot. And last season, there were the numbers where Cedric and Power Echols played 1 million snaps, and they talked about how good Amari Campbell was, and Amari only ended up playing about 120-ish snaps on the season. And like Jeremiah said, I have been really impressed with the play of Amari Campbell this season. He's looked way more athletic than I thought he was. He's fast. He's really good at closing out on angles. It's funny, according to Pro Football Focus, obviously a small sample size, but Amari Campbell is the highest rated player on UNC's defense. He's higher rated than Elijah Huzzie, Kamon Rucker, Des Evans. He's the highest rated player on this defense. And I agree. It was funny on Adam's article that was published yesterday about playing depth on the defensive line and how UNC feels like they're hitting their mark in terms of how many guys they want to play up front defensively. There was a comment that said they need to show this article to Tommy Thigpen regarding, the linebackers and not playing depth on it. And I agree they need to develop depth on that front, but I don't think they have it. So Caleb Lavalee is who everyone assumes to be the number 3 linebacker. He was the one who was getting the first team reps when Amari Campbell got hurt during training camp. And he's the first linebacker that came in against Minnesota from the second team, and same with Charlotte. And I'm going to preface this with, I understand this is an extremely small sample size. This is 11 snaps that Caleb Lavalee has played this season. But in those 11 snaps, he has 2 missed tackles. And according to Pro Football Focus, he has an 18.5 tackling grade. And that among eligible linebackers, so linebackers who have recorded a tackle across the entire country on the FBS level, there are 698 linebackers that qualify for this stat. Lavalee's 18.5 PFF grade is second worst in the country. 697 out of 698. And not only are these, just any kinds of missed tackles, they're learning moments. I mean, Geoff talked about it this past week, how that missed tackle he had against Minnesota on that screenplay on that 3rd and long was a good learning moment. But that missed tackle he had on the screenplay against Minnesota was the drive that ended up being a missed 27-yard field goal. So if the kicker hits a 27-yard field goal, UNC loses that game. When Charlotte scores their late touchdown, that I know that Geoff Collins was really upset about, it was because on 2nd and 17, Lavalee has a missed tackle and the receiver goes for about 2 or 3 extra yards. And then the next play, when the running back is wide open in the flat, that's actually Lavalee's assignment in coverage because UNC's in man. And after that play, you can kind of see, if you couldn't see it on the broadcast, but you could see from where he's sitting in the press box, Thigpen really got into Lavalee after that play. So, Caleb Lavalee is a young guy. I mean, it's his 2nd year in the program, super talented. But at this point in time, I just don't know if he has earned the snaps, to be played in the game. I mean, you can practice good all you want, but if you're making mistakes that could be costly down the line, like a missed tackle against Charlotte could turn into 2 missed tackles against a better opponent in ACC play of more consequence. And I would even argue the gap between linebacker 2 and 3 on last year's team, so the gap between Power Echols, who was an all-ACC player, and Amari Campbell, who was a true freshman last year, was a lot smaller than the gap between Amari Campbell, who assume is the linebacker 2 on this team, even though statistically he's grading out higher than Power, was a lot smaller than the gap between Amari Campbell and Lavalee this season. And it's interesting how when Mack Brown talks about linebacker depth, the first linebacker he mentions behind those 2 is Ashton Woods, who's a true freshman that's been injured, and not Caleb Lavalee. All of this to say, I don't think they know who their linebacker 3 is right now. Because I think the guy they thought who was going to be their linebacker 3 has, again, super small sample size. But statistically is performing as one of the worst tackling linebackers in the country. And, a 1 missed tackle here against Minnesota ultimately should have costed UNC the game if that, the Big Ten kicker of the year hits a 27-yard field goal. So those are just mistakes that I think, yes, are learning moments, but also when they're repeatedly happening over a 2-week sample size, that's where you kind of get worried about, can we play this guy? Do we need to find another linebacker? And that's a process that I think UNC is going to have to figure out over these next 2 weeks before ACC play starts.
All right, let's try this
There
again.
you have it. If UNC had lost the Minnesota game, it was Caleb Lavalee's fault, per Evan Rogers.
Not
there
what
you
I'm
go.
saying. Not what I'm saying.
It was Caleb Lavalley.
I
Fantastic.
understand. Yeah,
Stuff.
I understand the point, Evan, but they've got to get playing time to get in there. And they've talked about. I remember Mack. When was it? Was it earlier this year, or was it one time late last year? It was earlier this year. He talked about, I don't want to have to force those guys to play somebody that they don't trust, because it's their job to put guys on the field that can play. Because if they don't, and your position room doesn't perform well, then you get fired. So there's that dynamic to build this depth. And I think you can build depth in practice, but you don't know what you've got until they play. And so, Adam, what do you do here? I mean, the defensive line depth has played pretty well. And we've talked about those guys. But at linebacker, to Evan's point, not so much at linebacker. And it kind of puts Tommy Thigpen in a quandary between building depth and playing guys he can trust to make plays. Your thoughts?
Tommy Thigpen, with all due respect, also put himself in a quandary during the preseason which was great. We got a chance to talk to all the assistant coaches, as you guys know. A couple practices there would get players and assistant coaches as you work through the preseason. I thought Tommy Thigpen also dug himself a little bit of a hole when he said Cedric Gray and Power Echols never got tired. That's why we didn't play anyone else. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a team that is worn down at the end of the last 2 regular seasons after super fast starts. I'm sure they were tired. Only one ACC defender played more snaps than Power Echols last year, and it was Marcus Allen, the UNC cornerback. But yeah, and I will agree with Evan, for as loopy as he is. I would say that I do think, and this is my opinion, that Ashton Woods is probably their third linebacker right now, although I think they certainly left the preseason thinking Caleb Lavalley was their third best linebacker. I wonder what's going on with Michael Short, because he's a guy that we've heard about for a couple of years now that they've liked, that you would think might be third or fourth in that rotation. But it's interesting that we're talking about this because the defensive line depth has been good. And that's sort of what's, been our entry point into this discussion. And I think the defensive, the secondary depth has been pretty good, really good at safety. I know they do, as we played the clip, want 2 more corners, but, if there's to get a lot of guys in, it's going to be North Carolina Central on Saturday. I mean, it's your one FCS opponent. And I was going to say, as you get deeper into ACC play, I think we're going to see Amari Campbell and Power Echols almost exclusively at linebacker, which we have seen. What those other guys only play, 5 snaps the other day? 5 or 10 snaps, I think it was.
Very minimal.
Yeah. Evan does make a good point about the drop-off last year from whoever the second best linebacker was, I guess Power Echols, to Amari Campbell. I think there's a big drop this year. But the UNC defense, I think for a 2-game sample size overall, it's been a pretty nice return on the new Geoff Collins era, I think. What is they, 16th in the country in rushing defense right now? Nobody has more sacks than Javari Ritzie. He's number 1 in the country in sacks. It's kind of crazy.
Yep, and I think part of Javari's benefit is not having to play so much. And Jeremiah, get back in here. Hopefully the internet issues have worked itself out. Like I mentioned, you've got DL depth, defensive line depth. They've played a ton. The thumbnail for this is Joel Starlins and Jacoby Cowan, who I think have played well in their somewhat limited minutes, but they're good, or limited snaps, but they've rotated a bunch of guys there. I think they said they've rotated 11. Max said they rotated 6 safeties. But at linebacker, like we were talking about, and at corner, 2 guys have predominantly played there, and I don't know that it can stand given the way injuries happen in football, like we've seen on the offensive side for North Carolina. But your thoughts here on the Lavalee, Short, Ashton Woods. I mean, the Law brothers are out there as well, sort of subbing for Power and Amari.
Yeah. Apologies for the Wi-Fi issues. Hopefully we're straight, good to go from here on out. So hopefully it's not so many. Yeah. But when I look at the linebacker group, everything that Evan's saying, everything that Adam's saying, I want to actually add on to that. A lot of those guys that we're talking about are so young too. Obviously, Amari's young, right? But we're talking about guys that are either freshmen, redshirt freshmen, or sophomores. So they don't have. Not only do they not have a lot of in-game snap experience, they just don't. They haven't been with the program that long either. So I think it becomes difficult from that standpoint. And then everybody's not made like a Cedric Gray. Everybody's not as talented as a Power Echols, and we're seeing like we said earlier, we've seen Amari Campbell flashing too. So for those guys to be as young as they are, and maybe that's not necessarily an excuse because there's development that goes along with that, both on your own and both with with the coaching. But we're talking about guys that it's not like for example the defensive line unit at UNC. There's a lot of experienced guys that have kind of unlocked this year. Like I think there are guys that like we're looking to take that next step, and through Geoff Collins or Ted Monachino or a combination of both, those guys have been able to figure it out and they've been able to share snaps. But you have a linebacker group that Power Echols is 4-year guy, and Amari Campbell was really appointed basically by Cedric Gray to kind of fill in for him. And then outside of that, it's a lot of young guys. But I think the necessity to do the line, and I think to the point of fatigue, even if those guys let the adrenaline go and they feel, refreshed or they feel energized or whatever, as the season goes along, the more snaps you take, the more you actually, start to wear down. So there's the risk of injury that goes along with, how tired you are in a game. But one thing I think that is going in UNC's favor right now is the 2 games that they've played, the overall defensive snap counts, as far as like just defensive plays that they've had to play, has been a lot lower. So last year, and I was calculating this in a story I wrote last week, they were, about 75, 76 plays a game on defense against, I took the Campbell game out and I took the West Virginia game out. So in their regular season games against FBS teams, you're looking at about 75, 76 defensive snaps. And then both of the first 2 games, you've had less than 60. So there's fewer snaps to go around, which, I mean, obviously does keep guys, off the field a little bit longer just by nature. But even with that, I do think you need to find that third guy. Is it Caleb Valley, Ashton Woods? I guess that's something that, I remember Tommy Thigpen bringing up Cade Law at one point too. So you do need to find that extra guy to, if nothing else, just get one of those guys off the field, give them a player to breather. You need the guy to be usable, but I mean, sometimes you just need a guy to just, get out there. And I think the NC Central game coming up is a good opportunity to do that.
Question in the chat, and I'll roll it to this. Evan, is it worth playing guys against Central just to get them out there? No matter they've got to learn. Where is the I guess the hook for a guy if he's out there making mistakes against a team like Central? Because JMU will be a little better, and then Duke's when it really gets into it.
So they're going to be able to roll out a bunch of guys this game. Central is a team that, as Adam would like to point out, lost to Eli by almost 30 points this past weekend. So this game shouldn't be close. Yeah. This game really should not be close at all, even at halftime. And those are the games in the margins in terms of like the score where those mistakes can be afforded and can be worked through and learned through. And I think Jeremiah brings up a really good point with the difference in the number of snaps, and that the defense is playing a lot less snaps this year, which means one of 2 things. It's, less snaps going on, your workhorse guys like Power Echols and Amari Campbell, but also means there's less snaps for those reserve guys to come in. And on the flip side, and I think what people have started to realize with this UNC team is they're going to have to win football games a lot differently this season. They're not going to put up 45, 50 points. They're not going to have 13, 14, 15 plus offensive possessions, which means those defensive possessions are even more important. And you can't have those mishaps maybe from a depth guy that result in points or an extended drive for an opponent when you understand your offense is just scoring in a different type of way this year. Not that that's a bad thing. I think that's the strength of this team and the strength of this offense. But yeah, the Central game is a really good game for maybe UNC to figure out who that linebacker 3 is. I mean, I'm not saying Caleb Lavalee can't be the number 3 guy. I think he's more than talented enough, and I think he and Ashton Woods and Michael Short right now are probably all on the same playing field. The point I was kind of making was just from the sample size that he's provided, there are reason to question, is he that clear-cut number 3 guy like it appeared in training camp? And these next 2 games, I think, are opportunities where you can sort through that. I know people see the James Madison and get worried about it just because of the name, and they certainly had a successful year this past or last season. But it's still just not the same JMU team, and that's a team that lost a lot of guys, a lot of their coaches to Indiana and beyond. So these are really 2 games that UNC can sort out more so just a rotation within that linebacker room. And I still expect, like Adam and Jeremiah both mentioned, I mean, once ACC plays comes around, I'm sure those top 2 backers in Power and Amari are going to be playing upwards of 95+% of the snaps. I just think the talent and the capability drop off is too far at that position right now to where you can, potentially risk putting in one of those depth guys in a consequential moment during ACC play.
It's a nice use of the word consequential. It was like Geoff Collins saying gravitas the other day. I had to give him credit for that. I like that one. He patted himself on the back and called it an SAT word, which it definitely is a SAT word.
Don't mention that test.
We're way past that. We're way past those days, man.
Adam, speaking of grades, if you were grading the coaching staff on playing and developing depth, how would you do it?
Well, what I was going to say when I got in here was like just a quick point. I'm not trying to hijack the conversation. Also, on offense, you're in a situation here where you're down to Connor Harrell at quarterback. He's obviously your back. Central, and maybe the game against James Madison is in there some. Oh no, did something happen?
You went cyborg again. This has been a heck of a day. Maybe the world's trying to tell us something.
Am I back at all?
Yeah, but I can't barely see you. It's like looking through a dirty piece of cellophane. But it's good enough.
It's rushed.
Maybe not. I'm gonna drop you out again. Sorry, Adam.
Okay.
Love you. Jeremiah, I asked you the same question. We're going to get out of here quick because this is stressful to me. Folks, if you're watching this, please drop your show suggestions in the chat, or better yet, on the message boards. There's a ton of suggestions. I'm going to take the top 3 and put it to a vote. Jeremiah, if you were grading this coaching staff on all the conversation that they've had about playing more depth, how would you do it? 2 games in with, I think, 2 more games where they can really, really get it out there.
All right, the 2-game grade, I am going to answer it with a grade, but I'm going to tee it up a little bit. The defensive line unit, they actually have, so the Minnesota game, they were to play 20 guys, and I put more stock into that because that was a close game throughout. So when you're playing guys against Charlotte, and they're talking about, this is how many guys we got in, there is value in that and getting guys in-game experience. But what's going to obviously be most important when it comes to ACC play is who can you play to like make a play for you against a conference team. So that's why I look at the Minnesota 20 players and I say, okay, so last year when they played in the single possession games they had last year, the most guys they played was 19 and then followed by 18. So the fact that you start off with 20, I think that's already a positive, in a game that I'm not going to say, matters, whatever, but in a competitive game. So I think the linebacker rotation is there, and I'm sorry, the defensive line rotation is there, and I actually just think they are better at defensive line this year than they were last year, partially because of the development of a Travis Shaw, the addition of a Joshua Harris, and obviously the way that Ritzy's playing. As we've already talked about, they need to be better at, substituting linebackers, but really just finding one that they can throw in there. And I actually do think, I know they gave up some big plays, but I do think the secondary is good, and they were able to get more guys in there. So if I had to grade it out, I would probably give them a B minus. And the reason it's not higher is because I would like to see, Campbell and Echols get some relief more. And I would like to see, not to, copy everything Mack was saying, but he was talking about getting more corners in there. I thought it was interesting that he brought it up because I actually was kind of watching that Charlotte game thinking like, or even the Minnesota game before that, thinking about, Tyrone Stewart and thinking about, I know Ty Adams is a younger guy, but I was thinking, maybe that those first three with Allen, Huzzy, and Stewart, maybe they cycle a little bit more. It's still early, so I'll start them at a B minus, and then if we get, give us 4 more games, get to the halfway mark, maybe I can give a different grade. But I think the defensive line substitution pattern has been really good. We haven't really seen it at linebacker, and I think it's getting there with the secondary. So a B minus, that's what, a 82. I don't think that's bad.
I'd take it. That's almost a 3.0. I would have died for that when I was at Carolina. Adam, finish your comments before we get out of here about quarterback depth, because I definitely think that's a relevant topic here. I mean, the balance between getting Connor Harrell reps and comfortable versus getting Jacoby Criswell more reps. Even Michael Merdinger, getting him some reps if necessary, because I got a feeling at some point they're going to need 1 or 2 of those 2 backups.
Well, sorry.
Don't jinx it.
Oh, it's going to happen again. I don't know. I don't know. The land of milk and honey here in Mebane. Well, yeah, that's just what I was thinking about when we were talking about the defenses. You're in a situation here as the UNC football team where I feel like you need to try to get your quarterback, Connor Harrell, as much experience, as much confidence, as much everything as he can get for what's coming. And I'm not trying to overlook North Carolina Central. I love the FCS. But would you also be well served to get Jacoby Criswell in there some? I think probably yes, but then again, that's going to be at the expense of maybe a series or 2 of Connor in a live game reps, live game action. What do the football guys call that? That's good work, is what they would say. That's good work, good against good. So, I mean, that was just a thought I had because, it's going to, what is it? The last weekend in September, it's ACC play from here on out. And I think this thing's going to get chaotic. I mean, if it hasn't already, we weren't expecting when we were up there in the press box the other day to see Kamen Rucker walking around pregame, not warming up. But yeah, that was just a thought I had. I mean, yeah, what your QB2 now is Jacoby Criswell. Your QB3 is Michael Merdinger. Man, the Criswell pickup looks bigger and bigger and bigger, doesn't it? In the portal. I mean, Max Johnson's not even home yet from Minnesota. He gets home tomorrow, supposedly. That's wild. Think about that. How long has he been up there? They supposedly left an assistant athletic trainer up there. I was saying to one of my kids the other day, do they send him clothes? Like, that game was August 29th. Like, what? Did he just go shopping at the Mall of America or whatever? And get some more clothes? I don't know. I know it's ridiculous things to say, but yeah. I mean, I think overall, I would give them pretty high marks for the amount of guys they've played. They've played a ton of receivers. They've played a lot of offensive linemen, some because of injuries. Obviously, the D-line, I don't know if I would give them over a B overall, but Lord knows we have heard Mack Brown talk about this for years and years and years, and it's been lip service for a good long time. But like we've been saying, 2-game sample size so far. I think there are some positive returns in getting some young guys out there and building the depth just across the board.
All right, Evan. The youth shall lead us. I'm going to let you have the closing thoughts here, and then I'm going to get out of here. But first, I'm going to talk about Johnny T-shirt, johnnytshirt.com. Hold on. I got this fancy stuff right here. Watch this right here. There's the link to johnnytshirt.com. Go to them, get all your Carolina swag. You can get your jerseys, your hats. It's almost sweat. I can't figure out if we're in false fall or we're in close to real fall and another summer's coming. But anyway, you can get a hoodie or you can get a sweatshirt at Johnny T-shirt. Also, Congruity, Matt at congruityhr.com. Check them out. Go there, get your small to mid-sized business assessment. Grow your business into a national brand just as Matt and Darren have done at Congruity with all their customer service and technology for your business. I'll throw that up while I'm just kicking it to you, Evan. Last thoughts here. Quarterback, got to have depth. Offensive line, it's going to be interesting to see the center position as we move forward with Oscar Blasky going out, which what appears to be some sort of ankle injury, and how that progresses. Big men with ankle injuries, never great. So Blasky's dealing with that. You had Willie Lampkin play some center last year in the bowl game. I did not think that went well. So they're going to have to finagle that on the offensive line. The quarterback depth Adam talked about. The defensive line depth, linebacker, secondary. What saith you, man? You're the one with the, you've got all the stats. You've got all the pretty sayings, the pretty hair still. And I will freely admit you were great on the Inside Carolina Live show again this past Saturday. So close us out.
Appreciate it. Yeah, my grade would be around. I would probably go all the way up to a B+. I really think the only position they haven't developed or displayed depth at is that linebacker spot. I know quarterback is a position people want to see Connor or Jacoby play more, but I think like Adam mentioned, it's an interesting balancing dynamic of you've got a guy who's only started two college games, and you need him to be your foreseeable QB1 this season. Then you also have the potential, if he gets hurt, you've got another guy that you also want to get some snaps. So that's just a tough balancing act. But I would go B+ because they've played more guys on the defensive line. I went back and looked. Last season, they had 4 guys that played over 30-plus snaps a game. And Miles Murphy, Fox, Ritzy, and Kevin Hester. And this year, they've only got, through 2 games, they've only got 1 guy playing over 30 snaps, and that's Ritzy at 32 snaps. Everyone else is in the 20s. And that's huge for those big bodies up front. That's, when Travis Shaw knows he's only playing 20 plays, he can go all out. And Max and Geoff really talked about how much space he swallows up and how he's lost 40 pounds this year and just is playing at a much higher level. And even at the linebacker spot, though they're not playing depth this season, I do think there does need to be credit given to Tommy Thigpen in the string of linebackers that he has developed and had over, since Mack Brown 2.0. I mean, we're talking about Jeremiah Gemmel to Chaz Surratt to Cedric Gray to Power Echols to now Amari Campbell. I mean, you don't have that run off of luck. I mean, that is development, that is coaching, that is good recruiting. It's all the above. So though they haven't had a year where they've had 3 linebackers that, they haven't had that third guy really kind of be that second starter or a guy who can maybe play 30% of the snaps and the starters play 70% of the snaps. They have consistently had every year 2 linebackers who are above replacement level. And usually one of those linebackers is at an all ACC level. So that is a luxury that I think, a lot of teams don't have. And I think this year the secondary is stronger. Mac talked about the depth and the safety. I think there is some depth there. I think for the cornerbacks, it's kind of like the linebackers where, Elijah Huzzy, how many plays do you want him coming out for? Marcus Allen, who I know has been targeted some, he's still lanky and, he's got some good coverage grades. Like, how much do you want him to come out for? I mean, it's just a tough balancing act. And then on the edge, I think someone mentioned in the chat earlier, I too would like to see Bo Atkinson play a little bit more, but Des Evans is also playing some of the best football in his career in terms of just run, stop, and tackling. But, overall, I would give it a B+. I think they've balanced it well. I think you're going to get a better sense of how much they're actually going to rotate when they play Duke, when they play Pittsburgh, when they play Georgia Tech, because everyone can substitute when you're up 40-7. It's a matter of when it's a one possession game or a 14, 10-point game in the third quarter against a game that, has a lot of consequence. Are you substituting or are you not? And that's something that UNC will find out with him the next month.
Evan Rogers bringing the heat to close it out. Guys, I'm getting out of here. We're going to keep this one shorter than normal. We've built the depth. Adam dropped out. We had to build that depth with Jeremiah dropped out. Evan Rogers is now the latest incarnation of depth for Inside Carolina. That is Adam. That is Jeremiah. That is Evan. I'm Tommy Ashley. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt Incongruity. Do me a favor, people. Smash that like button. Subscribe to Inside Carolina's YouTube channel. Go to the Tar Pit Premium message board and drop a name for this show that you want to see. Also, check out Ted Monachino. Man, he is great to talk to. His interview is up on the site. Zach Greenberg, the aforementioned backup center we talked about. Desmond Evans, Connor Harrell, Marcus Allen, and Christian Hamilton is also interviewed on Inside Carolina. Ton of stuff going on the site. Thanks to the Beat guys for joining me. Thanks to everybody for being here, and be safe. Thanks, guys.